All right, you should be seeing my screen now. Are you?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. So I am Sean Robertson. We are going to be talking about remote debugging on xdebug with xdebug and PHPStorm. And just to give you a bit of background about myself, I am a senior backend developer. I have 24 years experience in design development. I basically got involved in web design and such like back in 1995, 96, taught myself HTML and Photoshop. And then in 98, I got my first full-time job, and I've been doing that ever since. The banner across the top of this screen is one that I designed myself using the photograph that I took. I have 19 years experience with Drupal specifically. My user ID on Drupal.org is 7074, which pretty much puts me in the first half of 1% of all Drupal developers in the world. I got very lucky. I was involved in the Howard Dean campaign, and I got to meet Zach Rosen and Josh Koenig, who later went on to found Pantheon. And I'm huge fans of them. And in fact, wearing one of their hoodies and one of their t-shirts, Terminus shirt. Absolutely love them. But I also have a lot of experience with Acquia. Some of my larger clients over the years have been on Acquia. So what I am here to talk about today is how to do remote debugging on Acquia. So first thing is you will need to submit a ticket for the environment that you're working on. You need to specify the environment in the title of the ticket. They don't have a drop down for that. Unfortunately, they should, but they don't. And you need to be really specific in the ticket about exactly what settings you need, because depending on whether your site is PHP 7.4 or PHP 8, there are different versions that have to be set. So PHP 8 needs to have it set xdebug.mode set to debug. Unfortunately, a number of times when they've done this for me, they left it with the develop setting, which won't allow you to connect. So it is very important to request that explicitly. It will take about a full day. What happens is their support team is overseas, and then they kick it back to the tech team in the US. So like you'll get a response at like midnight or 2 a.m. and then it'll finally happen the next morning, or even a little later into the afternoon. So don't expect a quick turnaround on that. And then if you go to the status page on the site in question, you can click through. Let me just pull one up. Which tab was it? Crud. 1 second. I got to find the right tab. Yes, this is the one. So if you go to reports, status report, let's give this a second. And then you click here where it says more information under PHP version. And you can do a search for xdebug. And you should see a whole lot of hits, and in this case 142. So you go down till you get to this section, and what you're looking for is step debugger is enabled right here, and you want to see xdebug.mode is set to debug. If they did not do that, you will have to kick the ticket back. I've had to do that multiple times, unfortunately. So keep an eye out for that. The next thing that you want to do is set up server config in PHPStorm. And I've also added a fuller screenshot here. So in this particular site, we have it set up on both dev and stage because we're using two different versions of an API that I need to integrate with. And so I have the run debug configuration set up. I created a PHP remote debug called MO Health Stage, and that's set filter ID configuration by ID key, and you want to use xdebug Eclipse, even though you're using PHPStorm in this case, but that's what Acquia sends out. And then you want to configure a server. And so on the right here, you have server config, and what you need to do is go through your project and you need to set the absolute path on the server for both the project root and the doc root. I have found a couple of times that I had to do it for the vendor directory as well, but that hasn't always been consistent. That's kind of been, usually it works, but every once in a while it doesn't. And then the next thing that you'll need to do, so here we've got a command, this SSH command. So site in this example is a stand-in, in my case, it'd be MO Health, but mohealth.test at mohealth.sh.prod.acquia-sites.com. Generally, so would know the short name for the site that you're working on. And if you don't, you can request that from Acquia. They should be able to get that to you. Key thing to know here is that where I have 9003, both places, that depends on the PHP version. So if you're up to 7.4, you want 9000. If you're 8+, you want 9003. The reason is they use different versions of xdebug. PHP 8 uses xdebug 3, and that's also why you want to verify that they have set the mode to debug if you're on PHP 8, because that didn't exist prior to PHP 8. So the next thing you would do is enable xdebug in PHPStorm, which, where did my window go? That is this button here. I don't know, can you see that with the tooltip?
Yes, I believe so.
Where it says stop listening for PHP debug connections. So
Yeah.
you want to make sure, you want to make sure that's green. It's a little telephone thing. And then you want to make sure that you've selected the right environment up here. So depending on whether I'm on dev or stage, in this case, I'm picking stage. The next thing that we want to do is enable xdebug in Chrome. And that is this extension here. Let me click this. So this is really helpful. And this works with your local as well. I mean, it's useful not just for remote, but if you use Lando, for example, and you have xdebug set up in Lando, having this extension will enable you to connect Yeah, I got too many tabs. Hold on a second. Back. There it is. So with that enabled, the next thing I want to do, and I have enabled xdebug in here. And so what I'm going to do is connect to Acquia. And note that this will time out after a while. So like it did that to me right before this meeting. So you can just reconnect. But I can go back here, and the particular page that I'm looking at the moment is their clinical trials page. So I'm going to type that in. And what you'll find, and this is interesting, this is a peculiarity about about Acquia. So they have this /mnt/www/site-scripts/prepend.php, which exists only within their environment. You won't have it locally, but PHPStorm will break on it because it doesn't know how to map it. So all you gotta do is hit resume program, and it will go past it. Sometimes it'll hit it more than once. Yeah, it's doing that to me now. But you can see it's getting the connection from Acquia. I mean, I suppose if you wanted to SCP into the server, you could probably grab that file and get it and map it manually. I've never done that, but I presume you could. Let me just go back, and yeah, it didn't catch my breakpoint because I think I'm going to do one other thing. This is another thing. When you run into stuff like this, you can go in and add break in first line PHP scripts and actually step through it. But in this particular case, I think what I'm looking at is these blocks are cached. So I'm going to flush caches and let it kick it again. When you're dealing with debugging blocks, they are typically cached, and so it doesn't load them on every page load, which means that you won't actually hit your breakpoints. So you definitely may need to clear the cache to cause it to hit. So here I am, it's back there. Let that go for a second. It's a little slow now because I just cleared the cache. So it's hitting the same thing again. At some point, I do actually want to talk to Acquia about how to deal with that prepend.php. They've mentioned it in their docs, and they just say to ignore it, like they pass over it. Here we go. Now we're in index.php. So I should be able to hit resume and have it hit that breakpoint. It's doing that again. Crud. All right. I'm gonna set a breakpoint at a different spot. John was such. I literally had this working earlier. All right, let's do this again. Okay. Right. There we go. That's what I was looking for. All right, perfect. So now I can see basically, obviously you've got all the server variables and you've got, the stuff from the current method. I'm gonna step over that. Actually, I think I want to go into that. So you can step into, and we'll step through it. Let's get back to, okay. So yeah, you could see that our form value is here. I mean, this is all happening on Acquia's server. And so I'm connected to it remotely and I'm able to step through all of this, which to me is a godsend. Yeah, I could step out. Step out one more time. This is where you find yourself in the weeds of Symfony stuff. Yeah, one more. Like so here, for example, I mean, you can see the response, the headers. I mean, I clearly missed a breakpoint somewhere, but you can basically walk through the entire Drupal stack this way. And it's extremely useful when you're dealing with a third-party API. And the reason that I had to do this recently was because we have an API on this particular site that is completely, so it's whitelisted to a specific IP. So this particular import method here, I can't debug it locally because the client has restricted it to server IPs, although they actually just opened this up for me, or they're going to for Monday and Tuesday because it'll take too long to debug this remotely, but because I need to be able to run Postman against it. But they basically have locked it down so that nobody external can get at it. And that's the typical case where you would need to be able to connect within Acquia. And it is a little bit painful, I'll be honest, but it works. And I've had to do this a few times. We had another client that had a language translation service set up that only was authorized by domain, so it only work on staging and prod. So I had to get Acquia to enable xdebug on both. I think I may have gotten away with just staging, but the point was being able to step through that particular translation service and figure out what was breaking there. I mean, there's no way I could have done that locally, right? You know, and putting in a whole bunch of log statements isn't really going to help in a case like that either. It'd just take too long. I mean, you'd be sitting there for hours and hours. So there is incredible value in this. And once they set it up, I mean, it works pretty well. You get a little hiccups here and there, but it generally works pretty well. The one thing that you need to make sure is that your local is on the same branch as the environment that you're running xdebug through. So, like in this case, I'm on mo health dot test. So I need to make sure that my local environment is, in fact, the staging branch, which you can see here it is. So like that, if it's off, then it won't find the files. So if your local is on prod and you're connecting to the state server, it won't find the files and it won't trace. So you got to make sure you do that. And that is basically it. So I would guess I would open it up to questions. If there are any questions. Sorry, I got a lot of noise on that one. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Trisha,
Yep.
how do we want to proceed at this point? It doesn't seem like there's any questions.
All right. So yeah, I guess thank you so much for your time, Sean, and thank you for hosting this session. We appreciate it so much. And thank you also to all the people who have attended. I hope this won't be the last, and I do hope also that we would be seeing you in the next session also. So I don't think we would be having one for December, but we would be
Holidays, yeah.
yeah, because of the holidays. But I believe we would be having a holiday a holiday party, just a virtual one. So just stay tuned for more information about that. And yeah, I do hope we see you next year also in future sessions.
Oh, I hope to be back. And you have my slides, so please share those around. And I am free to answer any questions that come up if people are interested in learning more about this. I hang out in the Slack all the time, literally all the time. So ask in colleagues-Drupal, and I would be happy to answer any questions.